Hi everybody, thanks for coming back and joining me on another update video. So I've finally got hold of a double slip. I had one on order with Hattons, but obviously everything which is Pico track based is incredibly difficult to get hold of at the moment. I did watch O'Neill and he picked up one from Peter's Spares. Yes, they had 12 of those in stock. They were about £6 more expensive than what was available at Hattons, but I'd rather have it now than wait. Probably a good opportunity to give the smaller independents a little bit of a sale. So I've done that and that's arrived. So I've pulled up the track. As you would have seen previously around here, I was running some of my locos. I did run in for a couple of weeks. That was all good fun. And it's time now to kind of finalise the track for this lower level. There is going to be a little kind of spur off at this double slip into what will be my goods freight area, but at the moment I'm just going to be working on this area just here. Now, as I was also doing it, I thought, actually, I've been running the 800s and the HSTs around and they've been working quite nicely, but what happens if I was to run two 800s? And I realised that just here, and probably on the other two corners that I've already glued up, they may well collide. And I did the kind of normal trick. I picked up a red marker and I sort of drew it along to see where it would go, and I also ran this around, and I found that when you're running 60mm centres, they would still collide. It wasn't big enough, so I've moved it out to 70, and you will see just here for that I've had to put a little bit of a kink so the track goes out and comes back in. It's not prototypical, I know, but that's the only way I'm going to make this work. And to be honest, generally this is going to be used for running freight around, but just in case I wanted to put a couple of 800s around, I need to make these sections wider. I'm going to have to go readjust, but I did go off and 3D print some of these little spaces that I built up in Fusion 360. 70mm, they've got a 16.48 width, so the idea behind, you can sort of push them in place and hold them in place when you're running some flexi track. So you will have noticed that actually that one's a relatively okay print, but some of the prints I have this issue. So this is actually the bit which is bonded to the build plate with some risers. You can probably just see the little ripples. That's where the rafts and the little bits go to make it. It doesn't work very well, but the actual end print does give you these nice crisp ends just here. So I'm quite pleased that the holes are to let the drain, because it is hollow, let the resin drain out. So I've got these. I did make them originally thicker, but they obviously don't need to be 20mm wide. 10's quite good, so I've got a number of these. The idea behind that, I can put those down as I need, and around the corners I can put a 70mm centre line through it, which does mean obviously when using Pico Streamline, that runs at 50, so it's going to be a bit interesting. But here I've got a bit of work to do. I've already popped out and marked up the area and drilled some 10mm holes ready for mounting underneath. I'll just get rid of my cup of tea. And currently the board isn't fixed, so I can start working on putting these in place, putting the servos underneath and wiring all up. Being able to take the board out is going to be quite handy. I have actually glued the baseboard to this point. I'm just going to measure up here and lay some of my track foam just where these spots are, and then I'll bring the track round to it. So that's the plan. And then over at the far side, just behind my laptop screen, I've got to do the same work there. Along the main area, which is sort of behind all of that stuff, I've got my new quad length Pico track is now laid up in that distance, and it runs all the way along, so that's all working quite nicely. But I've decided to make those block detected, so to speak, so that my control panel, because it will be hidden, I will be able to see if there's something on there, especially if you get a short and you turn it all back on and you've forgotten you put something in there. At least it'd indicate that there's something inside the tunnel that runs along that area just there. So according to Pico's instructions. If you want to make a double slip kind of electrofrog, because they come natively as Insufrogs, you have to do a little bit of cutting. So just here you've got two wires which come from the track and get moved over to the actual frog. And to make it an electrofrog, apparently you have to just cut here and here. You do need some very sharp and fine cutters to make that work. So I'm going to pop on some magnifying glasses just so I can see where I'm cutting. So let me just hopefully cut these without breaking the actual solder joints, which is not as, oh, that is done. I'm kind of hoping that they will. There you go. There's one. Try and do the other. So hopefully these are all now connected as they should be. And they are nicely, I'm not going to use them to pull gently. So what you do then is you twist these together and solder to them. Hopefully you can see that. You twist them together and solder. I probably won't twist them, I'll probably solder a piece of wire to them directly. These could then be sort of safely moved out of the way. Not quite sure why you're told to cut there, and why you don't cut a bit further back. Oh, I do know, because these bits are going to be live as well. So I'm going to do the same on this end just here, see if I can get that. I'm going to use some, those ones are damaged slightly. They are not, managed to stand on that one by looks things right. So those are done as well. So now I've just got to solder those together. The other thing I want to do is remove the spring, because at the moment they're spring loaded. I've got servos, so they should move. So I just need to remove those springs. There's a tiny little catch just about here that I'm hoping with a small enough flat bladed screwdriver I should be able to open that up and do what I need to do. So let's just try that. You just push it and it just pops over. There's the tiniest of little springs just there. Okay, tweezers are not going to do it. Let's just see if I can. There you go. The tiniest of little springs there. I've got no idea how I'd get that back in if I needed to. I clip that back on. It's now free moving. Excellent. And we do the same on the other side as well. So I did just simply push that away and it unclipped that, like so. It's a bit fragile, that, to be fair. I think it's a bit fragile. There's the clip again. There you go. Right, all back on, and they move side to side. So I've just got to solder those two sections in now to make the frogs active. I'll do that in a second. So I've soldered on, and I've decided to stick it onto the foam backing before I do anything else, because I can make sure then that the holes, the movement is dead centre of those. And I've cut some slices into the foam to do that. So I'm just going to try to do that now. It's a bit of a messy job. So the idea behind this is I can get my frogs through nicely. And then I should be able to adjust it so that I can see the movement of the switch blades. That's central to that one. That is central to that one. So if I just hold that down there, you can just see those holes now pretty much centre of that section there. So I'm going to let that glue down like so. I'm going to just double check that again. That is pretty much centre, and I don't know if you can see the hole there. Let me just see if I can move a bit around, but you might just be able to see how that moves in the centre of that one, and the same for this one as well, is moving. So this way I can make sure that when I put the point motors through, I know that the foam's not going to interfere with it, and it's all set and done. So I'll leave that to set. I'll put a bit of weight on there in a second just to make sure that it's all weighed down nicely. I've got a piece of, I had some wood somewhere. A bit of copy decks on there as well. We leave that overnight to bond to those points. The next thing I need to do is I need to work on this, which is my set of points to swap me over to get me into the sidings if need be, and I just need to do the same. Basically need to put a piece of wire on there to extend the frog, and you need to cut and remove these two pieces of metal. That basically makes this section run entirely from that frog, and the only other thing you do then is just bond a wire across this section just here, which allows then the polarities to come across into this middle section, and then you've got basically power from the track going down here, and you're not reliant just on the switch blades making contact in case they get dirty. So I'll give that a go now. Now I'm just going to go ahead and do the work on this electro frog here. I'm going to remove these two bits of wire which connects up so I can isolate, and you are recommended to pull them off completely. So once you've done that, it is effectively broken until you wire everything up correctly. So they are not pulled off. So weirdly, the other one pulled off nice and easily. This one is being a bit more of a problem. That's hopefully a bit of wiggling. Right, so they are almost gone. There's that one there still. Just trying to pull this away so that on some of the ones I've cut them, but actually it's probably better to actually completely try to remove them, just in case they kind of do try to bridge themselves again at some point. So they are now free from the joining wires. Now I've just got to make a connection just here across these two. I've mounted one set of points. I'll probably put those on eBay, so if somebody wants a red sort of repair for 99p, but I will bridge from here to here, here to here, and put the relevant droppers on as well. So I'm considering wire to dropper, wire to dropper, see what happens. I've got some liquid flux to try to make sure that the solder flows slightly better. So I've just marked up the side which is black on my layout, so don't forget which side to do stuff on. I'm just going to measure up the wire as well. So my plan is to be able to do something like that. So you can see how this will play ball. I had to put a new nib actually on my soldering iron because the previous one went black and it just stopped working. I'm not sure what's going on with that, but so I'm going to put a little bit of solder on here first, just the length of it, so I can easily tack that on, and then we should be able to see what happens. Now I always have a problem with this, so whenever I try to put a bit of solder on, I end up mounting the tracks. I'm hoping that having a little bit of flux on there first will help this work better. So I'm not sure if that has helped or hasn't, but it's certainly gone on okay. So the next thing is to try to solder on the black dropper, which I'm hoping will go like so. Now add a little bit of solder onto that. Actually, I wonder if adding a little bit of flux on here would make any difference to this or not. Let's see what happens. 350 degrees. I really don't want to that's soldered on there, all right? Okay. So that has done what I said, so we'd start the red side. Let's just do the same again. Just use the old wire strippers. Let's give it a little bit of a twist. Keep that wire closer. Let's just run a little bit of solder on it. So now I'm going to just add the flux on again. This liquid flux, I'm hoping it does a better job at sucking on. So I am using lead-free solder. Just move that away so I can get my hands in the right spot. It's not as nice as I want it to be, but you can probably just see how it kind of does mount a little bit on that plastic. Probably give that a little bit of a clean up in a second. Right, so I've got my item here. I'm going to see if adding flux to the solder here and there and on here will help this flow. And obviously there is stuff already in the solder, so let's add a bit onto the tip and try it again. That one hasn't worked as well. Need to clean up the track, that's for sure, because there's a bit on there. It is on. I think continuity is good. I think I'm all right. with those joints there. Just going to get a bit of alcohol and wipe that down. So the last thing for these points is to solder onto this wire just here, which of course will be for the frog. So I'm going to twist these together like so, and I'm going to simply run some solder along it. Like so. So the last thing to do, I just want to put a little bit of heat shrink wrap on, just to protect that cable when it goes through the actual baseboard. So I'm just going to heat that up, and everything else is now in place and ready to start laying on the boards. So work has been continuing on the underside where I've laid the double slip and the points. You can see I've just added my servos. Each set of servos now have a Hall effect sensor on there, wired back to this rather crude distribution, and this goes back to the CAN Mio. I've also added a eBay purchased relay board. This is connected up also to the CAN Mio for outputs, and this will run 3 of the frog switching relays to each of these sets of points that I've got here. So I've been busy. Looks well, I guess a bit of a mess. I'll see if I can tidy up the cabling. I decided to try also running these easy clip kind of connectors to go back to for the track droppers, to see if these make it a little bit easier to connect up, because I've been working on this board predominantly because I just didn't want to do all this work sort of facing up to the board when it's fitted in place. Now I'm just going to power this on so you can see it doing its sort of start of day power cycle. So I'm just going to run a couple of tests now. The power cycle has gone on, so you should see this light just here come on, which will mean this servo will be changing the frog polarity when it gets to the right midpoint. There you go, you might have heard that. You could hear the click go in between the servo moving. So I'm kind of happy this is now all ready to put in place on the layout. I still need to join the actual tracks to it. So the wiring is all now in place. The double slip and the single set of points are now in. So it's now time to give them all a test. I'm just going to make sure that these all work. So it's been thrown in one direction, and I can see that one of the magnet sensors is on and the other one is off. And hopefully now they've swapped over, so that one is successful. Let's just try number 2. Let's give number 2 a try. So this one's moving. You heard the relay click. Sensor 1 on, sorry, sensor servo 2 1 off, sensor 2 servo 2 on. If I do it the other way around, we should get the opposite. So 2.2 is off and 2.1 is on. So that's all looking good. And finally, servo 3. So we've got servo 3 sensor 2 off and servo 3 sensor 1 on. Go back the other way. relays clicking, and now we've got servo 3 sensor 1 off and servo 2 on. They are all looking good. Next job is to start joining the tracks up. I've made this slightly wider here because I found, as I said, the 800s do collide, although they do collide on all the other corners on the lower level as well, albeit slightly, but I'm not going to change that. I don't have 202 class 800s at the moment, and if I did, they'd probably run on the upper level anyway, because that's where the passenger stuff would run. So I've just made it a little bit wider here anyway, just to help if I do run anything which has got those longer coaches and longer noses on. So the next job is to connect up the track here and going around into this corner and along, and then the lower loop will be mainly sorted. The next issue will be making sure that these all work. From what I now know, you obviously set up these points to move and the frog over here to switch, and vice versa. And when you're doing it on the control panel, it's I think one of my previous videos I do talk about that as well. I'm having to run all this at the moment through the Merg FCU program because I don't have another CAN pan to test it with. So I think once I've wired up these, I need to plumb in another CAN pan or make a new module and add the relevant power traction bus around. I'm going to end the video there, so I hope you've enjoyed. If you have, then please do hit the subscribe button, and yeah, leave me any comments, hit the like button as well. That would be fantastic. Thanks very much for watching. Bye for now.